we are going to read an email together is what we're going to do. So I'm going to put on my glasses. I guess it's your first time to see me wearing glasses with the buzz cut. And of course, this is also the same day as 6 days after the Zero Guard buzz cut. I haven't shaved my face, but I do have the neckline trim there. So I'm going to read this email. I've got a friend named Kusei who sends me emails from time to time. I've been a subscriber for a while and often likes to submit ideas to me for this channel. So I want to read this email to you and then I want to talk about it. Here's what he says. Hey Nick, how you been? I've been watching James Bond movies recently, the newer ones by Daniel Craig. I noticed his hairline, which is maybe a Norwood 3. Obviously he's a handsome man playing a very famous role that represents many sides of masculinity. James Bond might come at the highest of standards for men in terms of look, confidence, competence, style, wit, etc. The actor for the last 4 of these movies has been about a Norwood 3. I'd like to see you make a video about that. Probably many of your younger subscribers too. Good day, Nick. Good day, Nick. Okay. Thank you for that email. And I definitely feel this is very relevant. It's interesting. It reminds me of an episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld, and they're talking about all these fancy cars and gadgets that James Bond had, and yet he never seemed to smile, never seemed to laugh. Now, granted, wit, yes, there's wit involved with James Bond, but as far as smiling and laughing, that's not something you really see out of James Bond. And that goes against something I talk about regularly on this channel, how so many guys that are experiencing hair loss more aggressive than I have, and that are much younger than me, they continue to perceive that women look at them in a way that if you don't have this perfect head of hair, then you're not attractive. And I keep saying, but don't forget about anti-beauty. Think about the fact that if you wreck that idea of what it means to be an attractive man on terms of a soap opera or the Hollywood version, and you go for more of what I like to call anti-beauty, get rid of the hair, expose the hairline, show how confident you are in that sends a subliminal message of how confident you are. But it is something that we're saying on Comedians, Cars Getting Coffee, is that with all that James Bond had, he never seemed to smile or laugh, and that's weird. And so the way it goes against what I teach on this channel is that women, and I've interviewed many women on this video series, and one of the first things they always say, universally, they always say, a man that can make me laugh. And James Bond didn't seem to be the kind of guy that made women laugh. Not really. He wasn't known for being funny, and he wasn't known for being smiling, which is another thing that women find attractive in man, is a man that smiles. So it's funny, since I've had this hairstyle, just in public, whether it's men or women, they see this look and then they see me smiling at them. If I smile at them, it's like I get a quicker smile reaction back from that person. So it's an interesting combination, whereas James Bond, I feel, isn't using this to his full potential because he's not funny in a way that we think. I know it's that dry British maybe kind of jabs, but it's not funny, you know what I'm saying? And he doesn't really smile. And there's almost like this smugness, and maybe that's just a British thing. But still, at least in American culture, I feel that's something that James Bond is missing. He's not smiling, and he's not like being funny, like truly funny, in the way an American audience can appreciate, in a way that females continue time after time to say that's one of the most important things, is a man who can make them laugh. It's not that way with James Bond. But to touch more directly on what Kusei asked me about, as far as James Bond's hairline being a Norwood 3. So I admit I have only seen like 2 James Bond movies. I like them, but I've only seen 2 of them. One of them was filmed in Thailand to an exact place I've been to, so that's why I watched it. And then I watched that weird Moonraker one, which was meant to compete with Star Wars. It was filmed in like 78 or 79. I really liked it. But those are the only 2 I've seen, and some of you may say, well, those 2 are the worst. I don't know. It's not that I don't like James Bond, it's just I've only seen 2 of the movies, and I definitely haven't seen the new one. So we're going to look this up right now and just kind of get an image of Daniel Craig as James Bond, just so we can get it. I mean, I have a vague understanding of what he's going to look like here, but let me just, I'm going to Google images. By the way, he's now age 50. So let's take a look at this. All right, here we are. Here are images of Daniel Craig as James Bond, and even now I'm like, I see a hairline that maybe even resembles mine, just without the thinning. And of course, he is a bit older than me, so we do see a more obvious receding, but still, it looks more to me like a Norwood 2, if anything. And at the very worst, maybe it resembles the at the very worst, maybe what I've got now. You know, where we can say what I am. No one anymore, now that I stopped saying, is saying that I'm a Norwood 3. People are saying Norwood 2.5 at worst, or the Vegeta hairline. So I think that is interesting, but we've yet to see a bald, right? I mean, I don't think we've ever seen probably a hairline worse than this. Now, I've read some articles that perhaps the next James Bond should be Idris Elba. I would quickly agree. I think he'd make an amazing James Bond. To me, he already is James Bond. The movies that I've seen him in, I just really like this guy. To me, this is the guy that like epitomizes masculinity right now in Hollywood. And he often sports the beard. So if I could vote for who would be our next James Bond, it'd be this guy. Now, for all I care, he can shave his head and be a zero guard or whatever. But this guy, oh look! If you simply Google his name, there it is. There's the James Bond logo. Because other people feel the same way as me. Idris Elba needs to be James Bond. He just happens to have, you know, perfect hair, but at the same time, I'm looking. For me, it's not that we definitely need to have our first, bald James Bond, or we need to have our first black James Bond. For me, it's about identifying masculinity, however that looks. And for me, I vote Idris Elba as one of the most masculine men that we see in Hollywood right now. But as far as us being ready for a bald James Bond, here's what I think. I think that's going to be a while, because James Bond is British, and I feel it's more of an American thing that you embrace the balding and shave it off. I know we've got Jason Statham, but still, let me look at this real quick, because he's British, right? So I'm like, well, what if he was James? I just can't even imagine this guy as James Bond, Jason Statham. Yet he is the more of a British version of that identity of the confidently bald British guy, but still, he's not to me, in my mind, James Bond. He's too gritty for that. So those are my thoughts on James Bond and balding and laughing and smiling and awkwardly using this little mini tripod on that. So I'm glad we had this little discussion. Now that at the end of this video, I guess it would be kind of weird if James Bond was bald. It would be weirder if he was bald than if he was black. Again, Idris Elba should be the next James Bond. But I think because he's British, somehow, for me, and maybe this is something I've discovered in making this video right now, I think for me, something I've just realized about myself is very easily you can identify American masculinity with being bald. I don't know how well that translates over to Europe and in Great Britain. And I can't know because I'm an American. I've only got an American perspective, so I know a lot of you are European. How do you feel? Do you think that maybe it's easier to be a bald, buzz cut American compared to being European or British specifically? I am wondering about that. I know that in Europe, soccer, or as you call it, football, is much more popular over where you are. And I'm seeing a lot of these guys who had a similar hairline as me, and they're buzzing it off too. Like, that's kind of a thing that's going on. So I'm wondering is America, in essence, leading the way in embracing a receding hairline and shaving it off, buzzing it off, and now Europe's catching up with that. And do you agree with me that America is so quickly to embrace this, but Britain isn't as much as far as in Hollywood? Because I struggle to see a bald James Bond. I don't struggle to see a bald superhero. But when I think of superheroes, I think of something that's more of an American concept. James Bond is this guy who still has all his hair, and he's not funny. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe if you're gonna have all your hair, then you don't have to be funny. But otherwise, being humorous, at least in an American perspective, is a big part of being an attractive man. Whereas hair doesn't matter, being funny and smiling does. But James Bond isn't known for smiling or being funny. So therefore, by default, maybe he doesn't need hair. I know that sounds like a mess, but that's truly how I feel. But what do you think?